This conference will now be recorded.
So as Liz is sharing her screen, we just want to touch base with you guys on the ground rules. We want everyone to get as much out of this training as possible. And to do that, we ask everyone to have their cameras turned on and be present and engaged in the training. And also, if you're not speaking, to have your microphones on mute so that way the background noise isn't distracting anyone. So before moving on to step 4, does anybody remember what step 3 was from last week?
Focus your work.
Yes, thanks, Amanda. So it was focus our work. Has anybody started to utilize the tools that we provided you guys, which was the Wheel of Life or SMART goals?
The tough question list helped me out a lot, and findhelp.org was a great resource for me to give to some of my participants that are calling me about housing and stuff.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Thanks, Josh, for the feedback. I'm glad that you guys could use some of the tools that we provided you. So as a refresher, last week we started about celebrating the participants' accomplishments as well as the accomplishments for the family members. We introduced the Wheel of Life, which was to reflect where they stand with the 8 key goals and narrowing it down to where should be their main focus. We also talked about using the SMART technique to create goals, which was specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So as always, we're going to go over the 5 family centered coaching steps. Step 1 is prepare for the meeting. Step 2 is build a relationship. Step 3 is focus our work. Today you guys are going to be learning about step 4, which is assess what role to play. And next week, step 5 is plan, do, review, which also puts support and accountability into play.
So as Hilary stated, today we're going to be going over step 4, assess what role to play, and some of the resources that go with that step. So when deciding what role to play, a tip that supports the principles of family-centered coaching is being transparent with your participants and families. So when you're transparent about the different roles that you can play as a coach, you keep the participant in the driver's seat and letting them set the agenda for the meeting. So making the roles clear to the participant ensures that the coach is operating from a peer-based perspective that we talked about. So you want to explain to the participant that there are 3 main roles that you can play as you work together, and that these can change throughout the course of a meeting or different meetings that you set as you work together. As the coach, these roles align with the 3 approaches of case management, readiness assessment, and goal setting. And we'll go over each of those. So case management, this approach is when a coach can provide knowledge of resources and information that will be helpful to the participant in regards to their current situation or any barriers that they might be facing, as well as any goals that they have set, helping them get to that goal. So the participant can decide if this is an approach they want at any given time. And this role is dedicated to sharing information and laying the groundwork for your families when they are in crisis. So readiness assessment, if the participant might be feeling uncertain about next steps to take or maybe a bit stuck where they're at, you as the coach can engage in a conversation with your participant to explore what's going on and address their concerns. So in this role, the participant is still in the driver's seat, but you can use some of the tools and resources that we've shared over the course of these past few weeks to help guide them into that conversation and decide those next steps. So this is also a good role to engage in powerful questions, which is something we're going to be speaking about later today. So the final one is goal setting. So when your participant is clear on a family goal that they have or an individual goal, you can work with them to describe the goal and help them through that planning process to identify steps to take towards that goal. So Hilary and I are going to do a quick dialogue. And through this dialogue, I'm going to be the participant, Hilary will be the coach, and we're going to use each of these different approaches. And at the end of the dialogue, we want you to identify which approach was used in which segment of the dialogue.
So hey Liz, how are you since the last time we spoke?
I'm doing okay. I missed a few rental payments though, so I'm nervous about getting evicted.
All right, so I understand that nervousness. I can refer you to our rental assistance program if you're okay with that.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so how about everything else? I know we spoke about the prospect of gaining employment. Did you have a chance to apply anywhere?
No, I've not applied anywhere yet, but I did spruce up my resume so it's ready to go.
Okay, that's great. I'm really glad that you took that initiative. So what do you think the next step should be?
Well, I did look online at a few places that were hiring, so I just need to set some time aside and apply online.
I think that would be a great next step. So let's set a goal to meet next week, and then you could show me all the different places that you had applied to.
So after hearing this conversation between the coach and the participant, can anyone identify some of the coaching roles that were used?
I'll go, Liz.
Hey, Eric, thanks.
I know Hilary basically asked permission at different times to assist with taking steps. There was some goal setting, but she also did some active listening pertaining to your current situation.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Eric. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to add? So to break it down into those three different roles, so the case management aspect would have been when she referred me to the rental assistance program. Readiness assessment would have been asking about my employment goal and what next steps need to be taken. And then the goal setting would have been instructing me to apply and then setting that timeline for those results.
So we want you guys to ask your families if they have any questions about your role as a coach during a meeting, and also let them know that they are sharing information and that you will be asking permission to switch between roles, and that they are the ones deciding which role you guys will play, you as a coach will play. The reason for switching roles in between roles is to keep the parent in the driver's seat because they are the one making the decision. And as we discussed before, we tend to want to fix everything for our participant. So switching between roles will allow you to assess whether or not the participant is ready for change, and we'll discuss that here a little bit sooner. So what Liz has shared on our screen is the 5 family-centered coaching steps, and it's also a good resource to use to know which role to play. And this tool can be helpful because it outlines the 5 steps and the different perspectives outlined of a coach and of a participant. And it also points out how the participant is in the driver's seat. So I'm just going to go over this chart. So for step 1, prepare for a meeting. The participant doesn't really have to do anything but show up. You as a coach, you take time before every meeting to get centered and prepare for the space for the meeting. Step 2, build a relationship. The participant identifies who is in their family and their hopes and dreams that they have for their families and themselves. And the parent sets the agenda. And the coach's role is they both discuss and agree how they want to work together, taking into account the interests of the family. And the coach sets the agenda also with the participant, but they also help guide the agenda. So step 3, focus our work. The participant's role is to identify areas in their life in which they would like to achieve results, supporting the whole family well-being. The coach's role is to listen and ask clarifying questions to support the participant, identifying priority areas for the family. So step 4, assess what role to play, which is what we're learning today. The participant's role is to share more information about their desire for results and how they might achieve them. The participant and the coach together decide whether the participant is ready to move forward with goal settings for each area, and if not, the participant and the coach continue to work together towards the readiness for goal setting. And as a coach, your role is to listen to the participants, and together they both decide the role needed for the coach, which could be case management, readiness assessment, or goal setting, based on the interests identified by the participant. In step 5, we haven't went over this yet. We'll learn this next week, but it's plan, do, review. And the role for a participant is to identify goals that support whole family well-being. They generate ideas together with the coach. They make plans to achieve the goal, taking into account the interests of the family members. The parent identifies and makes a support plan for how to gain support from family, friends, and others to achieve their goal. And the coach and the participant make a plan on how to keep each other accountable. So your role as a coach in step 5 is to provide support and assess the resources as requested by the participant. The coach helps the participant brainstorm and develop a plan on how to get support from family and other members to help support their plan. The coach works with the participant to develop support plans, which includes others such as family members, friends, and coworkers. And the participant is to develop a plan to help keep the coach accountable. So the participant keeps the coach accountable, and the coach keeps the participant accountable. That way the ball's in both of their courts. Does anybody have any questions about the different perspectives outlined as a coach and a participant? This chart can also be found on SharePoint under the Family Center Coaching tab, and Liz had sent you this chart prior to this meeting.
So a big part of step 4, assessing what role to play, is the stages of change. So I'm going to bring up the table, but I did send it out via email, and it's on SharePoint as well. But before we do that, we want you to think about a recent change of behavior in your life, or just a change in general. Think about what was uncomfortable, what was rewarding, and what was the biggest barrier to keep you from making that change. And have that in your head and think about that as we go over the different stages of change, because we're going to circle back to it. So this is the stages of change table that was sent out. And the goal of this section is to understand the stages of change and how we will coach during each of those stages. So each time you meet with a participant, it's going to be helpful to review this table prior to the meeting, just so you can recognize the different words and phrases that they may use. Think about the language that they use and see where it fits into this chart under the parent's perspective. So we're going to go over each of these as well. So the first stage of change is not ready for change. This would be if the participant is in a state of crisis, like we talked about. And as a coach, we would switch to that case management approach. So if a parent you are meeting with is maybe in the middle of a health crisis, or perhaps they're about to be evicted, this requires us switching to that case management approach to help resolve the immediate need. Once the crisis is resolved, we can meet with the parent and reassess their readiness to move on to their original set of goals. And some keywords to listen to or listen for in this stage would be I need blank, or I can't think about change. The next section is pre-contemplation. This leads us to the role of readiness assessment. So when someone is in this stage, they're still not considering a change in their life. They can even be in denial that a change needs to be made at all. So while we go over the rest of the stages of change, we're going to relate it back to exercise and use that as an example, just because it's an easy one to relate to all of these. So in pre-contemplation, let's say they have no desire to start exercising and may not even notice or recognize that their physical health is important, or maybe suffering. So keywords for this stage is change what, so they're not noticing an issue, or I can't, or I won't. As a coach in this stage, when a participant is in pre-contemplation, we can help them identify and address the different barriers that they may be facing. We can help them build motivation towards their original goals. And we can also normalize and validate their fears or hesitations moving forward, which may lead to change, because change is scary. So we just need to take that into consideration as well.
The next stage is contemplation, and this is also part of the readiness assessment. And when a participant is in this stage, they recognize the need for change, but have not yet made any steps towards that change. So they are aware of the pros for the change, but they are also aware of the cons for the change. And change is very uncomfortable. So for example, I know I need to eat better for my health, but I also enjoy the convenience of fast food. So in this stage, the participant is balancing the pros and the cons of actually making the change and may lead them to being stuck. And as a coach, we can help them consider the pros and cons of the current behavior and of the new behavior, and it can also help identify obstacles to change. And keywords to listen for in this stage are change, maybe, or I might, or I may. So stage 3 is preparation, which is also a part of the readiness assessment. And in this stage, the participant is committed to changing the behavior. So they might not have made the change yet, but they plan on moving into the action phase very soon. An example is I need to figure out what supports and options I have, and then I could start meal prepping instead of stopping for fast food. So in this stage, they typically start putting actions into place. So for example, they could be joining a gym, but they might not be going to the gym just yet, or purchasing meal prep containers, but not meal prepping just yet. So as a coach in this stage, we need to increase and motivate their commitment to the change and help them develop a plan in order to take the steps to change. And we also need to make it realistic for them. And some of the key words you want to listen for in this stage could be yes, but how? They might not be sure of the steps in order to take, or no.
So the next stage is action. This brings us into the goal setting approach as a coach. In this stage, the participant has made solid steps towards the change. Their plan is in effect, and maybe a new pattern of behavior is starting to form. So for example, they're going to the gym every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and maybe only eating out 1 to 2 times a week instead of every day. As a coach in this stage, make sure to be their champion and celebrate those small successes. It might not seem like much, but we need to praise all those actions and those steps towards the bigger goal. Revisit their plan and make changes as needed, and help them with any challenges that they are facing, so you can be their accountability partner. Keywords to listen to in this stage is I'm ready, let's do it, or I am. The next stage is maintenance. This is also a goal setting approach. So a new pattern of behavior has been sustained for a reasonable amount of time and is becoming a part of the participant's lifestyle when they're in the maintenance phase. When they are in this stage, they become confident that they can continue this new behavior long term, and they're less likely to relapse into old behaviors. So for example, they can now make healthier eating choices when they're at home, as well as if they go out to eat, and they've been consistently in the gym at least 3 days a week. So as a coach, we need to maintain this behavior and continue to integrate their goals into each of our conversations in our meeting with them, just so we can keep them accountable. Assess any obstacles that they may be facing and create a plan to overcome those obstacles when they do come up. Continue to set the new goals for them and be their champion throughout this process. Keywords in this stage include how do I keep it going, or I still am. The final stage is relapse or recycle. This consists of a readiness assessment approach. So we've gone from goal setting back into readiness assessment. This would be if the participant has regressed into an earlier stage on the chart. So it would be if they failed to maintain the existing course, either through inaction, maybe they stopped going to the gym entirely, or the wrong activity, they stopped meal prepping and they've started eating out every night of the week again. So what we can do as a coach when a participant enters this stage is identify the triggers that led to a relapse in their behavior. Reaffirm their commitment to the original goals that they had set. So just keep on motivating them towards the goals that they have and remind them of the benefit of them in the long term. So you also need to identify which stage of change they fell back into. So you'd want to look at the chart and see where they fell back into.
So now we're going to do a really fun activity, and I'm going to read you guys some scenarios, so please pay attention. And After I read you the scenario, I'm going to ask you what stage of change that they're in, and please just shout out an answer. I'll take some shout outs. So that way it doesn't cause any awkward silence and it doesn't lead me or Liz calling on you guys for answers. Okay, so scenario 1. An 18-year-old male visits Blueprints to increase his earnings in order to obtain housing. When presented with powerful questions, the caseworker finds out that he is homeless. What stage of change is he in?
Not ready for change.
Right, so there could be 2 possible answers for each scenario, but he's definitely not ready for change because he's homeless, so he's in case management for sure. Also, another one that we considered earlier was he's in pre-contemplation because he is aware of the change that he has to make. He just doesn't want to. So good job, Eric. Thanks. Scenario 2. A woman talks to a caseworker at Blueprints wanting to utilize her medical coding and billing degree to get out of her current low-wage position at a fast food chain. What stage of change is she in?
Preparation.
She is in preparation. Thanks, Amanda. She's in preparation because she came to Blueprints and she wants to get out of her low-wage job, but she's unsure of the steps to take.
Couldn't she be action as well?
She could be action as well. Yeah, there's
Okay.
2 possible answers for every scenario.
Okay.
So, scenario 3, sorry. So a single mom makes an appointment with her caseworker to discuss looking for an employment. But she does have a 3-year-old child and does not have access to childcare. So I'll read it again. A single mom makes an appointment with her caseworker to discuss looking for employment, but she does have a 3-year-old childcare and does not have access to childcare. Or she does have a 3-year-old child but doesn't have access to childcare.
Not ready?
Well, she might be a little bit more than ready, or a little bit more than not ready. She did make the initiative to make an appointment with her caseworker. And she was wanting to discuss looking for employment, but she doesn't have childcare.
Either whatever the word, and contemplation.
Yeah, so she can be in contemplation because she's weighing out the pros and the cons, but she could also technically be in preparation also because she's wanting to discuss looking for other employment. She just has a barrier of childcare. Somebody earlier had said she's in case management because of childcare, and that is true because that is a big barrier for her finding employment. So scenario 4. So Blueprints assisted a career development client to enroll in post-secondary education. Due to a loss in childcare, she will be forced to drop out of college if replacement childcare is not found. So she's already enrolled in school, but she had a loss of childcare, and so she might be forced to drop out of college.
Maintenance?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she could be in maintenance for sure because she has to maintain being in college. If she does not find adequate childcare, she could end up relapsing. Good job. Scenario 5. A participant visits Blueprints wanting to learn how to maintain a healthy budget and start an emergency fund, and is in need of guidance to start the process.
Is in the preparation, like.
Yeah, good job, Corey. Yeah, they're in preparation because they're in the yes, but how. They're unsure of the process on how to, they need some guidance on how to start an emergency fund. So scenario 6. A participant comes to Blueprints for our rental and utility assistance program. They are in need of help to get their recent rent paid, and we refer them to our capabilities program for budgeting, but they have no interest in budgeting their money.
Not ready for change.
Sorry.
Right. Okay, so they could either be not ready for change because they don't have any interest in budgeting their money, or they could be in pre-contemplation because they made the step to come to Blueprints, and we had shown them that they do need to pay their rent, so that did show them a challenge that they have to overcome. Last scenario, scenario 7. A participant asks their coach to put up a little lift for a refrigerator. The participant is working full-time but has not yet set aside money for savings. She knows she needs to start an emergency fund but is not ready to start one immediately.
Contemplation?
Yeah, so she could be in pre-contemplation or contemplation because she's considering making the change, and so she's in the I might, I may, but she hasn't done it yet. So good job, guys. Thanks for volunteering, and you guys all did a very good job.
All right, so now we want you guys to take a couple moments and think back to when we asked you about a recent change in your life. So think of a change. Maybe you've tried to quit smoking, or maybe going to the gym or eating better, or maybe spending more time with your family, any kind of change that you've had in your life. Take some time and think about what stage of change you are in personally. If you've been stalled in your progress, what might you find most helpful in moving forward, and what has been helpful in making changes in the past. So go ahead and take a couple minutes and think about that change and what stage of change you are in. And then we're going to have you share. So does anybody want to share their change and what stage of change they are in? Nobody wants to share. Josh?
A big change I just had to make is I had to find a new job. So I'm in the maintenance stage of that, trying to keep my new job right now.
Well, we like you here, Josh, so thanks for sharing. So I'll share mine. So I have been trying to read more. It's something that I used to enjoy a lot, but I haven't found the time to do so in a while. So I think I'm in the preparation. I waddle between preparation and action because I have bought a couple books that I'm interested in reading. I started one of them, but I haven't read it, and it's probably been like 3 weeks now. So yeah, so I'm in preparation because I've taken that step towards the change, bought the books, and I have them, but I started them and kind of fell back into preparation. So that's where I'm at. Hilary, do you want to share yours?
Yeah, I'll share mine. So I have been through all of these stages, but I am currently in the maintenance. So recently for Lent, I gave up sweets, which is a very hard thing for me to do because I'm addicted to sugar, and first thing I think about in the morning is eating a cookie and drinking a can of Coke. So I'm in the maintenance stage because I'm doing pretty good, but it's very, very hard for me. So I my kids want cookies all the time, and so I will give them a cookie, but it makes me want a cookie. So I do have the temptation of relapsing from them. But I'm standing strong. The supports that I have are amazing, and they're probably the reason why I haven't went into relapse just yet, or I'm hoping not to. But I think working from home is a good support for me because at work, I sit by the donut table, I think. Everybody brings donuts in every Friday or Thursday or whatever day they want to, and I swear I could smell the donuts. So that has helped me from not eating some of the donuts. Also, another support that I have is the family that I have around me. When we go to the grocery store, we avoid the cookie aisle, and they'll buy me like apples and oranges, which are like healthier sugars compared to like donuts and cookies. And I've been eating a lot of lettuce lately, so thanks to them, they're helping my habits, the healthy habits. But I think support's huge in maintaining my change, because without that change, I would easily relapse because it's so convenient to go buy a donut rather than cook breakfast in the morning. So there's mine.
And you have 5 days to go before lunch's over. Are you going to stick with it, or are you? Is it over?
I'm doing good so far, but it's hard. I'm seriously addicted to sugar, and I know that sounds silly, but it's hard. So does anybody else have anything they want to share? Any changes?
I'll share. So my fiance just got a new job. He starts April 12th. It's been a long time coming. So we're kind of in like the action stage because he's starting the job. We've done all the interviewing and all that prior to it. So like it's a change for me because I'm used to him being home and like furloughed. So he's been taking care of like our house and our dog. So it's definitely going to be a change for me as well, like adjusting to that. So I think just like the most helpful things in moving forward and like the changes and stuff has just been like the motivation and trial and error. He's applied to many different jobs and has gotten interviews and not callbacks, or has been denied jobs. So I think just like the motivation and like understanding that like this job is probably one of the best ones that he's come across. So the action and the change for our family is going to be beneficial in the long run. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Amanda. That was a good one. And I hope he does well. So if nobody has anything else to share, I'm going to talk about another tool that we have. And the tool is called Asking Powerful Questions. A lot of people are going to ask, what is a powerful question? And it's an open-ended question that usually starts with who, what, when, where, why, and how. And by starting a question like this, it gives the participants time to dig deeper and provide more details to their situation. And if you use close-ended questions with the participants, the answer is usually just a yes or a no. But in the case management phase, you will have to ask some yes or no questions or straightforward questions. But in order to get into the grit of the details, you will and you should start using powerful questions. By using this tool, it can help you assess where the parent and the other family members are on the readiness assessment. Powerful questions have the qualities that are thought-provoking, that stay with the participant and touch a deeper meaning and evoke more questions. So, for example, do you like working as a coach? So this question has the potential to stop the conversation before it even gets started. And this is a closed-ended question. A better way to ask this question is, what about working as a coach is satisfying to you?
So we're going to think of a scenario with an end goal and practice using powerful questions for this next section. This is going to be our scenario. A participant comes in and they are wanting to gain employment. So we're going to take a couple minutes right now, and we want you to think of some powerful questions, open-ended questions that you could ask this participant about their goal and about gaining employment. So take a couple minutes now and think of some questions that you could ask them, and then we'll have you share. So does anybody have any powerful questions for this participant and their goal that they'd like to share?
I would ask them what type of work schedule are they most comfortable with? Like, do they want mornings, afternoon, evenings? And then that can, if they say I can only work, maybe a 4-hour period, opposed to open schedule, that opens up a lot of different things.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Thanks, Linda. Any other ones?
Maybe what interests do you have? Like what types of work are you interested in?
My battery's on. Yeah, that's a really good one. Sorry, my computer went off for a second. Yeah, definitely trying to gauge in on what interests they have to qualify for whatever employment they're looking for. So here are some ones that we have listed. So what would your ideal job look like? How much do you need to earn to meet expenses and goals? This is a good question to get them thinking about the different financial outcomes that they will need for their entire family and whatever goals that they have set. Is your family supportive of your goal of getting a job? So as we implement these tools, remember that we're focusing on the entire family with the whole family approach. So it's important to include them in your conversations with the participant. What is your child care plan you have set in place? Where would you like to be with your finances in 3 months or 1 year? And then how would you rate your transportation situation on a scale of 1 to 10? And what could we do to make it 1 to 2 points higher? So as you get to know your participant, there's different powerful questions that you can ask them regarding their home life, such as what is the vision of the home and the family life you want to have? What are a few things you like about your current living situation? Is the housing safe and adequate to fit your needs? And what are meals like in your family? These will all hone in on their living situation and what kind of goals that they have for housing. So for their family life, what network of friends or family do you rely on and can count on when you're in a bind? That's one that you can relate back to Who's in My Family tool that we went over. What are your hopes for your children? What are your worries about your children? And what is the quality of childcare that you have? Then for finances, what about your current employment do you like or would you change? Have you ever thought about setting a financial goal for your family? And once you feel like you have a better understanding of the parent and the family dynamic, you can end the session with a question like, what am I not asking you that may be helpful to discuss? This way we can touch on anything that we may have missed or that they'd like to touch on.
So I'm just going to add my little advice in there. I think asking powerful questions, what to me was one of the hardest things about learning about family-centered coaching and how to implement them. The reason being is because I had the typical caseworker fixer mindset. Before learning about powerful questions, a participant would be telling me their story, and in the back of my mind, I already knew how to fix it. And if I couldn't fix it, I would have an idea of who could fix it or where to send them to. So when you ask a powerful question, you're putting the ball back in their court and triggering their brain to create solutions to their own challenges. I do think that asking powerful questions is vital to family-centered coaching and our whole agency. Otherwise, we're always going to be the ones fixing the problems. So if you don't ask powerful questions just yet, just give it some time. But it was difficult because instead of blurting out the answer to them, I had to like pause, which was hard enough for me to do. And then I had to basically not tell them the answer to their challenge. I had to create a question for them to come up with the answer to their challenge. So that's where it was very difficult for me to do because I already knew the answer. But we wanted to give you guys a heads up for next week. Also, we will be talking about stage 5, which is the last stage of family-centered coaching, and it is called Plan, Do, Review. And it also puts support and accountability into play. And we're also going to be sharing the resources that go along with it. So this is the end of our presentation for today. And we'd like you guys to use the resources and the tools that we have provided, so that way the next meeting we can have a discussion about them. Liz and I need the most feedback as you guys want to give us for these tools and resources. And I think Liz is having some technical difficulties. But does anybody have any questions about the stage that we went over today? About powerful questions. It's hard, but you guys, I believe you guys can do it. So good job. All right, so I will see you guys next week, okay? Thanks.
Thank you.